Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. I know that most of you are not here live with me because of time zone difference or because of other commitments you have, but many of you told me that you would be listening to the recording. That's why kind of in my mind, I have all of you, and I'm speaking to all of you. And Jennifer is live here with us, which is wonderful. Warm welcome to you, Jennifer. And maybe as we go, someone else will be joining in. That's great. So I'd like to tell you a couple of words about myself. Perhaps if you are listening to this, you know me already, but if not, just a few words. I'm Karolina Gladych, and I'm a coach, a psychologist, and a group facilitator. I live in Cyprus, in a beautiful Mediterranean island. And the foundation of my work is mostly the three principles: understanding. And I'll give you a little bit of context of this webinar. So a few months ago, I had the idea of creating an online program for sensitive people. Or I should rather say, for people who think of themselves as sensitive. And I definitely, if you asked me to describe myself in a few words, sensitive perhaps would be one of those words. And in the past, it was like a big deal to me, that I'm sensitive. On one way, I felt somehow special and unique because of that. And on the other hand, I felt somehow different from others, not fitting in, that there is something slightly wrong with me. I don't actually think this anymore. And as we go, I'll share what changed for me. So, as my preparation for the online course for sensitive people, I interviewed between 15 and 20 people who think of themselves as sensitive. And in today's webinar, I would like to share some insights from the interviews. And I need to say that I learned a lot during the interviews. I could see many things much clearer. And also, what was a surprise for me was that I realized that I didn't want to do the program anymore. And in a while, I will tell you why. And right now, the main focus of my work and what interests me the most is living from our true self, which is deeper than personality, deeper than sensitivity, which is deeper and greater than anything that we can think of. So I'll start by, I guess I already started by, but as we go ahead, I will share two big misunderstandings that I see in literature about high sensitivity and in the common way of thinking about it. And then I will share with you 5 points that are the common threads from the interviews that most of you during the interviews mentioned. And the webinar will take about half an hour, I guess. And at the end, I will open it to you for any comments or questions. Okay? So let's define maybe from the beginning the sensitivity, because it can have many different meanings and it means different things to different people. So I would like to keep it really simple and basic. So just for the purpose of this webinar, let's agree that sensitivity is our ability to notice. And high sensitivity would be the ability to notice subtle information from inside of ourselves, from our body, our mind, our emotions, and from the external world, from the environment. And I would say that especially the subtleties that have to do with other people, perceptions of other people's emotions, energy, we could say. And the other element of high sensitivity would be the ability to process the information deeply. So the processing could mean that when we perceive something, we reflect on it afterwards. We can we can build a story about it, or we can just feel it intensely. And again, I believe it is neutral, and it can have like positive implications. For instance, when you are witnessing a beautiful sunset, or when you are looking at a flower, and then you process it deeply, you just feel it really deeply, it's wonderful. It's what allows us to experience life deeply. And it can also have a negative, you can say, implications. For instance, many people can relate to it, like having money worries. For instance, we notice that our account balance is very low, and then processing it deeply can mean just worrying about it and creating negative scenarios in our head, just thinking a lot about it. Yes? But as such, it's neutral. It's how we use it. And for me, it was a surprise to hear from other people that they thought of high sensitivity, or even about sensitivity, as something mostly negative, because for me, I could see it mainly as something positive. And right now, I see it more like something neutral. So the two misunderstandings that I have observed in literature and in what people say about sensitivity is, the first one is that external situations, other people, or something internal like a pain or discomfort can directly impact on us, can cause us a feeling or experience. And in literature, it's a lot about it, because, for instance, highly sensitive people are more aware of sounds and can get quite overwhelmed by sounds. And I'm like this, definitely. For instance, I can hear the very high frequency sounds that they use for scaring away cats or dogs. Other people usually can't hear them. I can hear them. Or sometimes when I hear my children, for instance, screaming or just making lots of noises, I can get quite tense, and it really looks as if the tension or the annoyance or the feeling of tiredness and overwhelm was coming from the sounds. And I also know that it is not. I know because when I reflect, I know that there were many situations when I was for a prolonged time exposed to very high sound. For instance, when I went out to a club for 5 hours and I really enjoyed it, I had a great time. I also know that sometimes when I'm really relaxed and in a good mood, my children can really scream, and I don't react so much to it. And when my head is full of thinking, like, oh no, it's so late and I still need to do this and that and I haven't finished that, my head is like exploding with lots of thinking, and then I hear my children screaming, then oh no, then it's like the tension is very intense. And for me, it was so freeing and really so powerful to understand that nothing from the outside can directly cause me an experience. Every experience is coming to me via the gift of thought. And if you are familiar with the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, you know that by thought, I don't mean like the content, the pictures, the sounds in my head. I mean what makes it possible to think, the energy that is arising in us. So I will leave this point here for now. And it's my invitation for you just to make your own experiments and notice that nothing from the outside can directly impact on you. And the second misunderstanding is one that I feel very strongly about. It's that high sensitivity, or even the expression, you are a highly sensitive person, that it is who you are, you know? And even in the literature, which some points in the books, they are useful, and I know they helped many people, so I don't want to devaluate it. But I feel that it really is not true what I can read in a book, like that you are a very special type of a person, you know, or that you are your sensitivity. Because like you wouldn't say that you are your work uniform, even though you wear it every day, maybe for 9 hours a day. You wouldn't say that you are it. And I think that that sensitivity is just a quality of our personality. We are born with different nervous systems, with different temperaments. Then we learn different things as we grow up, and we have some patterns of thinking. But it doesn't mean that this is who we are. And I know that you have experiences like maybe being a bit quiet inside yourself and just really being in flow of life and experiencing life and yourself in a very fresh and peaceful way. And I would suggest that this is what is your true nature, your creative potential to respond to situations, to see something new and to grow and evolve and change. You or I or anyone else are not the fixed form. And I actually talked with many sensitive people who said that when they were younger, it was a huge deal for them, the sensitivity. And now things change for them and they are much more relaxed. They are not so reactive. They are not so preoccupied with themselves. Simply because it's not who we are. It's just a quality that can also change and evolve. So I hope it's making sense. Is it, Jennifer, making some sense so far? Yes, Jennifer is nodding. That's great. That's great. So let's move on now to the 5 common threads that I have noticed while speaking to all the people. And the first one was that at younger age, that at younger age, you felt somehow different from other people, and not necessarily in a good way. That it was more of the feeling of not fitting in, or that there is something off about you. Maybe you couldn't put a finger on it, but you felt that in a way something was missing, something was slightly wrong. And perhaps afterwards you developed a sense that there is something special about you. And I can very much relate to it. And you know, it's amazing how what we think of ourselves acts as self-fulfilling prophecy. Like when we put a label on us, this label in a way gives us a false sense of security. It's like, okay, now I know who I am. And we tend to respond to situations based on what we think of ourselves. And then we tend to ignore impulses from within of us that are not consistent. So let me give you an example. For instance, you may think of yourself that you are shy in a social context. And maybe you have like a lot of evidence in your head for it, because in many situations you acted in a shy way, which means maybe you didn't speak with people who you didn't know. But you ignore that in many other situations you weren't shy. You were comfortable around other people. And when you are in a new social situation and you have an impulse, oh, I think that person is interesting, I'll go and talk to her. But then very quickly, and it's not like conscious process, it all happens very quickly. Then your label comes and says, I'm shy, I don't talk to people I don't know. And then you start feeling a bit uncomfortable and you don't go. And my invitation here for you and for myself would be just listen to the impulses, and especially to those that feel fresh and new and not that familiar, and allow yourself at least a little bit to follow those impulses, because they will expand of your sense of self. Great, so let's jump to the second point. And this was really interesting because in all of the interviews it came up, but never at the beginning, because I think it was a bit deeper. All of you, in one way or another, you said that you really want to like or love or to accept yourself more, or accept the entire being that you are, not just certain parts of it. And I need to admit, I felt very touched when I heard it. And I think it's true for everyone, that everyone wants to accept them. And I think that the sensitive people might have even more self-judgment and negative self-judgment than others, because of the tendency to process things deeply and to care what others think, what I think of myself, to analyze deeply. For me, this would be one of examples like when the deep processing works against us, because we focus on ourselves, because we think too much. And also, it is so clear to me that the path to loving yourself more, it's not via improving what you think of yourself or fixing yourself or becoming a better person. This is a road leading to frustration and more self-judgment. The way is just in opposite direction. It's in looking deeper than what you think about yourself. It's in looking to your true self, to the peace and resiliency and well-being that you have inside you. And this is expansive and big. And the wonderful thing is that the more you sit in it, the personality kind of loosens its grip on different patterns, and they start to evolve effortlessly. And here my invitation is to stop the fixing project and see who you really are. So let's move to point 3 now. Let me check my notes. So all of you mentioned wonderful projects that you want to bring to life in the world. Different people mention different projects. It could be something artistic or something that has to do with your work or with your family. And yes, I was very inspired by the projects. And then most of you could see how your sensitivity or the fact that there is something wrong with you stops you and doesn't allow you to bring to life what you want to bring to life, or what slows you down and doesn't let you take the next step. And here I have just very simple invitation. What if what you think of yourself, and even what if your feeling of not being ready, not being prepared, not being good enough, what if you didn't need to listen to it? What if it was just irrelevant, just a mental chatter that you are allowed to ignore in a way and just follow your impulses? And I don't know if you know that you have done it many times, maybe because you had to, maybe there wasn't time to listen to your insecurities and you just went ahead. And you can do it also with your creative, inspired projects. Yes, and then point 4. Most of you could see some benefits of sensitivity, although some of you initially couldn't see many. But when I asked more and more questions, you started to reflect on it. And you mentioned, for instance, intuition, compassion, being able to experience the wonderful feelings deeply, or being very perceptive and noticing things and having insights. And I think that's great that you see it. And for me, I can, because I'm very visual, I see pictures in my head, and I can see a choice that we have in any given situation as sensitive people, that we can listen to the chatter in our head, to the film that is always running, to the tape, and we can process it deeply, and we can become more and more anxious or depressed or upset or withdrawn. Or we can just notice, because we are very good at noticing, aren't we? We can notice that it's not healthy, that it's not helpful, that the fact that it's intense doesn't mean that we need to go there. And we have the other choice of listening to the voice of peace, intuition, common sense, well-being. It's just quite often it's a bit more silent than the mental chatter, because we conditioned ourselves to pay so much attention to it. And it might take a while. It might seem very silent, like a whisperer. But we can notice that this is helpful, this is healthy. And we can start paying more and more attention to it. And then it becomes easier and easier to hear it. And the chatter fades away more and more as we are not paying so much attention. It's like a shift. This was in the foreground, and the wisdom at the background. We can experience a shift. And our sensitivity can actually help us in it, because we can notice the difference in the feeling of those two. I hope it's making sense. For me, it was a big discovery. And every day it actually helps me a lot, just to ask myself, is it this, or is it the divine energy talking to me? Let me check my notes quickly. Yes, and the last point that I have on my list is that most of you mentioned that it was harder in the past than it is now. And I think it's great. And it's also for me a proof that you are not your high sensitivity, that you are not your personality, because you are changing and evolving. And most of you noticed and shared with me that what was the most helpful is having some distance, not taking things personally, having some space between what you're experiencing, some space between what is happening there and your experience. And I think it's great, and I really believe that we can expand the space. When we know when our experience is coming from, when we know that we are not a victim of someone yelling at us, or we're not a victim of a physical illness that we have, that we're not a victim of loud sounds, we stop paying so much attention to the external stimuli that is unpleasant. And we also stop paying so much attention to the unpleasant feeling, you know? And as we stop paying so much attention, it fades away. And there is a flow, and we can experience something fresh and new. And the space between any negative experience and us is bigger. And we are closer and closer to our true nature. As I'm hearing myself, I'm aware that it might sound a bit esoteric, but really, for me, it's very down to earth and practical when we realize that we are not our emotions, we are not our thoughts, that we can just let them flow. We have so much more freedom, and we don't spend so much time in controlling or trying to manage the emotions. We are just more in touch with our wisdom. And as Sydney Banks, the philosopher, said, if people stop being afraid of their experiences, most of the problems of the world would be solved. So, one second, my notes. So we have just one live participant here with us, Jennifer. And I wanted to ask you, Jennifer, if there is anything that you want to share or ask or reflect on. If yes, feel free to go ahead.
Something that came to my mind was that sometimes I notice that when I can be judgmental to myself because of I don't like the way I behave or something because I think it doesn't. I don't think it fits into normal society, like not the extroverted. But then later on, I was talking to you last week, and after I spoke to you, I realised that what I didn't like about myself was maybe it was from another perspective. It wasn't something bad. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I was seeing that quality in myself was something to be annoyed at, but looking at it from another perspective, it could be easily seen as the opposite of not being annoying.
I think it's a great reflection. And again, it shows us the power of thought. Like, you can notice something in you, like that you're maybe introvert or whatever it is. And then there is a judgment, you know, and we think that we are insecure or anxious or sad because of what we've noticed. But it's not because of that. It's because of the judgment that is happening in the head. And then, and isn't it a miracle that you could have an insight, yes? That you can look at it differently, you know? And this is such a beautiful example, like we are not fixed. We are the potential for insight, for freshness, for seeing something new. And you could see that it can be actually an asset, which is great. Yeah, nice.
It's like kind of like my son like he sometimes he likes to be on his own, and that can be seen as being something to worry about. But if you understand that we're all different, then it's nothing to worry about. It's just that person likes to be alone more.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned this. Yes, and I love that you're talking about children, you know, because so many parents are anxious when they see their child like wanting to be on their own. And hello to your son, he's there, I can see him. and I wish my children wanted to be a little bit on their own, you know. And there are so many benefits on being on our own. And the gift of thought is that we can spend even lifetime, you know, judging ourselves for anything, or we can just relax about things. We can just see them in a more neutral way. And then you see something as neither positive in itself or negative. We see things more as they are. Yes, I love this. Yes. Nice. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Just wanted to say that like the 5 points that you were talking about in the webinar, I was like nodding my head like the whole time, because I really can see that what you're saying is true for me as well.
Yes. Yes, there were really like common threads. Yes, and if you don't mind sharing a bit, because some time ago you wrote me that you had an insight and you saw high sensitivity as a form of low state of consciousness, right? Would you like to say a couple of words about it? Because I thought it was really insightful and it triggered my interest a lot.
Okay. Well, it's been something that's on my mind pretty much since you interviewed me about the sensitivity. Like, where does that fit into the 3 principles?
Yeah.
So I've been really curious about it, and I just had this thought, and I thought, I was just thinking about it, and then I thought maybe it's low consciousness. It's not. I'm not appreciating that the qualities of sensitivity are actually neutral, because you're seeing it from a lower consciousness. But then with the 3 principles, as you learn to understand the nature of thought and just being aware of sensitivity more, it I feel like I'm starting to see it from a higher consciousness anyway.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And it reminded me of something another coach shared with me, Veronica. She said that when she learned about the principles or about the inside-out understanding, when she understood that her experience doesn't come from outside, but from within herself, her stress level really dropped tremendously, you know. And when her stress level dropped, she started being less sensitive, you know, like less sensitive. What I mean by this, not less appreciative of a beautiful sunset, but less reactive, you know. She got in touch with her innate well-being much more. And I think that it's consistent with what you're saying, that when we are stressed out, our conditioned patterns really kick in. And one of the patterns can be high sensitivity in the sense of being very reactive, feeling hurt a lot, or being easily overwhelmed. Yes. And when our stress levels goes down, we are much less reactive. We are much more responsive to life. Yeah. Yes.
Start
And
to see more possibilities.
say again.
I think from the lower consciousness, it kind of like feels like you're stuck in that, like there's no possibilities, there's no options.
Yes.
And then I don't know, I just feel like the more that I understand the three principles and life, things look more possible to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Not all the time, but sometimes it still looks like there's no options. But I guess when I get in contact with my innate well-being, I can see that there's more possibilities.
That's nice. Yes. Because the possibilities are infinite. It's just our ability to see them. Yes. And from low level of consciousness, we see very little possibilities. Yeah, that's true. And now, before we end, I just wanted to mention one client of mine from Luxembourg, Veronica. And she really thinks of herself as a very sensitive person, especially in the sense of picking up on the energy of other people, and especially the negative energy. You know, for instance, when her boss is in a bad mood or unkind or anxious or upset, she believes that she's like a sponge, you know, and that she absorbs all the negativity, and then that she takes it home, and then impacts on her health in a very negative way, and it exhausts her. And I see that it's from certain level of consciousness, it looks like this, and then you are just a victim, you know, other people. And so what you can do is you can just protect yourself, you know, like maybe try to surround yourself with more positive people, avoid negative people, or try to kind of toughen up and block yourself so you don't experience different energies, different feelings. It looks like you have only these options. And from a higher level of consciousness, and this is what my client Veronica was able to have glimpses of, you see that the other person's negative energy or vibration cannot be transmitted on you, that you are not like a sponge, you know, that it's not possible for you to absorb. It's possible for you to notice, yes, but you can stop there, you know. You don't need to process what is happening. You can just experience whatever you're experiencing and then see what's next. And then you can have a fresh experience. You don't need to hold on to it. Then it's not such a big deal to be around people who are even negative or anxious, or who you experience as having like a heavy vibe, because you know that whatever you feel, you can allow it to pass. You are not absorbing it. You don't need to do anything about it. You have much more freedom when you see what is really happening. Is it making sense?
Yeah, actually, I had a experience just the other day where I was with someone, and this person's a very sensitive person, and they were talking about all these problems that they had, and I was really drawn into it, and I was actually seeing that all these things that this person was talking about were real problems. But it wasn't until later on, a couple hours after, that I realised that this person doesn't have any problems. That the only thing that this person has is the need to make some decisions. And because this person didn't want to make the decisions, they were seeing it as problems. And yeah, it was just, it took me a while to be able to see what was really going on. But it's
And,
just nice being able to eventually
yes,
see it.
and let me ask you, Jennifer, when you saw it that they don't have actual problems, but that they just need to make a decision, what did this realization make to you?
It was just their thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. And so,
Their interpretation of it was genuinely that there was all these problems
mm-hmm.
in their life,
Yeah.
and it also made me think that I think because I also see myself as being sensitive, that I also do that as well
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So now, being it as I can see it in that other person,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be more aware of it in myself as well. That
Mm-hmm.
if I start to make something out as a problem, but it's really just a decision to make.
Yes. Nice. Great. So it will help you in the future. And I also want to ask you, when you realized it, did it help you to lighten up around them, not feel so
And I was able to help her too, to
Say
be able to
again?
see it.
Mhm.
I was able to help this person to be able to see that it wasn't really that big of a deal, that it was just a decision.
That's so great, you know, that's so great because I think when we, especially when we are very sensitive, when we pay attention, when we're empathetic, when we listen to other people, and if their problems look very real to us, it becomes like a burden. Yes, one of the people I interviewed said that because they feel everything the other person feels, they feel obliged to solve their problems, you know? And it's so much heaviness in it, isn't it? It's so much responsibility. It comes from a beautiful intention of love or wanting to help. But what you said now, it's so much helpful that when you can see that it's just their created reality,
Yeah,
you lighten up, you are much more resourceful, and you can point them in more helpful direction, and you don't burn out, you don't stress, and you are more effective also as a coach or a friend or any type of helper. So thank you for mentioning this, because wow, this is so big and shows the power of understanding where our experience comes from. Yes. Nice.
well, the opportunity to talk
Yes.
about it with you
Mm.
tonight and
Yeah.
to find out about the results from the interview. It's
Mm-hmm.
what
Yes.
you found out. Yeah, it's really good.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yes. Let me just have a quick look at my notes before we finish. Um, okay, so I hope everyone that you resonated with what we talked about and that you found it useful. And please feel free to get in touch with me, ask your questions, or share your reflections or comments. I'd love to hear from you. And the two main points that I would like to repeat, perhaps, is first one is when you know where your experience comes from, you are more free, and nothing from the outside can cause you any feeling. It always comes from within you. And Jennifer's example was a great point illustrating how it can be helpful in a very practical way. And the second point I want to repeat is you are not your sensitivity. You are not any quality that can be described in words. This is just a small aspect of you, but deeper, you are a potential for everything. And it is possible for you to experience life in a new way, always. And the reason why I decided not to go ahead with the online program about sensitivity is because I realized that when we focus too much on our qualities, on our form, on our personality, we can become experts in the qualities, and we can give more meaning to them than necessary. And I feel much more inspired to look in the direction of our true self, of this expansive potential, creative potential that lies within us. And the topics that recently came up for me, actually, there's one, is lightening up. And nowadays, I'm working on creating two very fun and light-hearted online programs about lightening up. One will be for educators to prevent burnout, to work with more fun and more impact. The second one will be for women in business or professional women who really want to be good at their work, who care a lot, but who often stress out a lot. And how by lightening up we can again have more fun and much more impact. And the third one will be for parents. So I'll let you know once I launch them. And yes, thank you very much to you, Jennifer, for being here live. It really means a lot to me. And thank you all who listened to the recording, and see you soon again. Bye-bye.
Okay.
So I